Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Dave. So Dave, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm Dave. I am an Amazon consultant living in Austin, Texas. I've been in this e-commerce space for almost 10 years now. Started pretty much on the brand side for most of my career and then moved on to the kind of consulting services side in the past couple of years and have just worked with all sorts of Amazon sellers throughout my career.
So yeah, I'm always curious about this, right? Because Amazon is a big behemoth. They're always changing policies, but I'm curious, like when exactly that you got started working with Amazon and kind of how you got into this space.
Yeah, I was actually in college at the time. So I went to UMass Lowell and grew up in Massachusetts my whole life and had got into e-commerce selling through Etsy, through eBay back in probably 2010, early 2010s, and gotten into Amazon kind of as like a drop shipper, reseller of products. And this was more than 10 years ago now. And I was selling hydro flasks through Amazon, through Etsy, through a few different channels, and I really liked the tool. It really fascinated me. And so I got into more of the advertising side and really geeked out on Amazon ads. And that's when Thrasio had picked me up back in, this is really 2018, 2019, we started talking with Thrasio because I had been running digital ads, whether Facebook, Google, and driving traffic to Amazon, as well as the native Amazon ads. And there weren't a lot of people with that skill set who were on the job market back in those days. Usually if you knew Amazon well, you were either selling yourself or were like a consultant. And so I was pretty young and hungry, looking to build my career. And so I joined them as their first marketing hire back in, I want to say 2019. And that's where I really learned a lot of the tricks of the trade, getting exposed to tons of different products and different brands too.
So yeah, I'm curious in terms of now, right? Just kind of how exactly that you work with your clients and how you best serve them. Because yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that people can do with an Amazon.
Yeah, primarily our clients are probably between 2 and 20 million in Amazon revenue. So not as much of like the huge brands or the aggregators, just because we're a pretty small niche team. We focus on creative advertising and just overall platform strategy, just because there's certain things that Amazon sellers might not know or might not have seen that they could be missing out on, either profit or additional revenue, additional traffic. So I'm sure that you being in this space, once you get a look under the hood in a Seller Central account, you realize that there's a lot of different areas where you're like, okay, you haven't thought about this, or this yet. So, but our main core pillars are design and then ad optimization, because those are the probably two biggest things that most mid-tier sellers can use help with.
So in terms of ad optimization, I'm curious like what that looks like. And obviously, in certain categories, I guess, there's so much competition. So what do you kind of do to stand out when you are in a very competitive market?
Yeah, it's like you're competing against the AI-based ad strategies. And then you're competing against probably the agencies where you've got like a full team that can manage the ads. So as like more of an independent consultant, small team, we're a blend of like better than AI because we got more of the human touch, but with also like the same methods. Like we leverage AI and like some of these tools like PPC Ninja, PackView, Perpetua, but also with a depth of understanding of the platform strategy of like, which some tools just can't look at, of like the actual human logic behind advertising, like where you want to show up, learning like where your highest intent customers. So it's a mix of like looking at data, but also utilizing some common sense on the marketplace,
But I mean, it's like, right, like it's one thing, obviously, like, I mean, your USP like, at the agency, but I'm curious if you're selling a product like, I don't know, just say like, dog food, right? It's like a very, competitive product. So, AI tools, personal touch, kind of your knowledge in the space, but are there other things that you kind of look for to help somebody stand out? Because I think the biggest challenge I see sometimes with Amazon, it becomes a race to the bottom, right? It's like who can offer the cheapest price, And I think sometimes from that, standpoint, it's not a good business model. So how do you kind of like, go around this kind of challenge of charging enough to be profitable and to make money and standing out in the market?
I think it's like every hour that you spend needs to be the highest impact hour, right? And that's kind of how I operate. Our model is like, if I don't think that the time that we spend is going to be worth it for a seller, then I'm not going to suggest that we work together.
Right.
It's only working where I see areas of opportunity for a seller, and not everything. I don't do like, monthly retainer type model. I do it based on an as need, sometimes even a project sprint basis to like build stuff out where it needs to be built out. But I 100% agree with you. Is like most of Amazon is a race to the bottom. And like even my personal shopping on Amazon, in many niches, it's like everyone looks the same. So you just go for which one is the cheapest and can still ship to you quickly.
Right.
So there's definitely pockets of Amazon where there's profit. But in the most common areas where it's like tons of popular products, like super high search volume, it is so crowded and it's so cheap. Really, the margins are razor thin. You look at something that's a simple product too, like a garden hose or a door stopper, right? Like Amazon is the platform that you go to find the cheapest priced. Like that's the point of shopping on Amazon, is you want to get the best price. And so as a seller, you really got to tread carefully. It's like you need to have a good value add to your product. You simply can't be just a Me Too product and hope to survive, because it's a battle. It really is.
For sure. And then obviously now it's 2025. So I'm curious, like some of the new trends that you're seeing now, like on Amazon, that sellers should know about.
I think some of the trends that I'm noticing, like many things have gotten more popular, like supplements have gotten a lot more popular over the past five plus years. But especially recently, supplements has become popular. Mushrooms, anything with nootropics, mushrooms, like you take a normal product, you just add mushrooms on it. I mean, the search volume is definitely increasing from what I've seen in any sort of mushroom related category. And so it's kind of following the social trends. But in terms of like the shopping trends that I'm seeing, video is super powerful, creative is super powerful, as long as you're in a niche where like your creative serves a purpose, right? Just like making a beautiful product listing is not always the most effective strategy unless it comes with a direction. And so that's one of the things that we talk about with sellers is like, yes, we can have beautiful design, but design that really means something to the customer. It makes the customer feel a certain way, trust the brand. But that's something that's always been important with Amazon. I think of late, creative can make a huge difference. I've seen it. I've seen crazy case studies where like a major rebrand can turn a brand from nothing into something, but also like minor tweaks, especially the main images. It's incredibly powerful. I've seen some crazy stuff.
For sure. And I'm curious, like, how powerful, how impactful is it, these customer testimonials? Because, like, at least for me, right, like, when I'm shopping for clothing or certain products that I haven't tried on, I am looking at photos of like other people who might have like a similar body type, things like that. So, how impactful is that? And how do you kind of get your customers to leave those types of reviews, for your product listings?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good two-part question there, because the second part is the tricky one, right? But to answer the first part, which is like, I'm the same way. Like when I go to buy most products, I think customer reviews and customer images, like it's super important. Other products, it's not, as long as you have the star rating and the quantity of reviews, the actual photos, lifestyle photos might not be as important. Take, for example, like a letter opener or a door stopper, like something conceptually that the customer already understands. But if there's any ambiguity about your product, whether like what's in it, what it does, like what's better about it, it's one thing for that information to come from you. It's so much more powerful when it comes from your customers. But then the second part is like, how do you actually get them to leave those like super high quality, like authentic raving reviews where it's almost got like a cult following? I saw this on like one of Thrasio's brands, Angry Orange pet deodorizer product. People just felt inclined to leave reviews and show about how it worked because it did that for them, right? It made a positive change in their life. So if you have any sort of like usage product where by your customer using it, like then they're more likely to leave a review. But if it's something where they see a little to no effect, or it's just kind of like a everyday household item, how do you actually convert that customer from somebody that's just buying something and like, yep, this is good, it's fine, like a cable organizer for your desk? It's like, yeah, it helps your life, but nobody is going to go call their mom and tell them about the amazing, cable organizer that they bought. There's a few different things that you can do to make it more engaging. I think product inserts is like the area where we kind of have flexibility, but it kind of gets tossed to the side with like the level of creativity. And because in between probably 2010 and 2025, there's been a shift with Amazon's and like how much they scrutinize what you say on your listing and on your packaging in your product insert. And you hear all the horror stories, right? Of like, oh, we got shut down, our account got suspended. And so it seems like a lot of sellers just don't want to poke the bear with Amazon. But I think there's plenty of things that you can do that are well within terms of service. Even if you're not even like requesting a review, then I think there's a lot of opportunity there is like to develop the product inserts.
For sure, yeah. I think it's good to have that kind of flexibility. And I know that you work with brands that are kind of more established, but I'm curious, just kind of your thought process. Like if somebody wanted to start a brand in 2025, like what do you kind of recommend that they look for? Because obviously, somebody starting from zero is not going to be a good fit for you in terms of clientele, but they do have to kind of start somewhere to get to be able to like at least hit that 2 million to work with you. So what do you kind of recommend for those folks that are looking to get started?
Yeah. And on the managed service side is where I would say the 2 to 20 million is a sweet spot for us, because as you can imagine, if you're a brand that's only doing 50 to 100K, you don't want to shell out more, you don't want to shell out more money for an agency. So like what I would recommend to anyone that's like either just starting or maybe a couple $100,000 per year on Amazon is like, you've got to do the grind yourself, or maybe hire a few contractors, or some brands that have like a large budget and they want to invest in an agency early on, they can just know that like it's not going to be profitable, right? Because most agencies cost a few thousand. You got to have a higher ad budget. When you're starting out trying to push your brand, your cost per acquisition is higher because you don't have as many reviews. So I would say in that first year, if I were to go and start a brand today on Amazon, and you're starting from zero, that first year, you're not thinking about profit, right? Not even close. You're thinking about how much is it going to cost me to acquire customers and acquire reviews? And you can kind of back into it is like, all right, if you're in this niche and the leaders in this niche have, only maybe 1,000, 1,200 reviews, that what's going to solidify you in that niche is at least getting a few hundred. And you can work backwards from that and say, okay, if I need to get 400 reviews on my product listing and I'm doing it entirely terms of service compliant, just off of the customers, let's say that your product gets a 5% review rate. I mean, that'd be really good. But let's say it gets a 5% review rate, then that to get 400 reviews, you're going to need, what is it, 20,000 customers? I'm not a math guy, but you're going to need a ton of sales. And so that for that first year, entirely focus on acquiring customers, reinvesting back into the business, and doing as much of it yourself as you can. And I wouldn't outsource that much. I mean, we usually recommend for beginning sellers using the automation software because that's, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck. It's not that expensive. They do a pretty solid job, especially the ones that we've seen sellers using like PPC Ninja, Perpetua. I'm sure there's others out there, but those are the ones where I hear about the performance and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good for what you're paying for, and just try to bootstrap it as much as possible.
Right, exactly. And I guess like in terms of like products, right? Because there are so many products, and I'm also curious, and kind of like a two-part question as well, is because Amazon is big, right? It's a global platform. So kind of, do you look to, or do you like how you recommend to like, just where to sell? It's, also because, yeah, I mean, you can sell in lots of different countries. So yeah, in terms of like finding a product or even which country to sell in, what do you kind of recommend there?
I've thought about this a lot, and like, because 99% of the conversations you see out there are about Amazon US, right? So much revenue is in Amazon US. A lot of the top service providers, they focus on Amazon US, but I've seen products be successful across all different markets. The thing is, it's like if you craft a product and it's specifically oriented for one marketplace, then that's kind of limiting. But if you have a product offering that's successful in the US and it's like a unique product, you can bring it to other markets for a relatively low lift. There's some like complications sometimes with like packaging compliance or customs or tax. But I think the no-brainer that I see most sellers do is start in the US, expand to Canada, then expand to oftentimes UK, And then from there, sometimes the EU, sometimes Australia, but the majority of the revenue is Amazon US. And so it usually makes the most sense to start there unless you want to build a product that's specific for another marketplace that solves an issue or plugs in culturally to like another geo.
For sure. And obviously now we're in 2025, right? We're still in Q1. So from that standpoint, in terms of your business, what are some of the biggest goals and objectives that you have?
My biggest goal this year is bring some pretty unique products to market. We've got a lot of exciting clients, and kind of my history was working with people who had invented products and actually bringing them to market. And so that's something that we're trying to expand a lot more this year, is working with maybe D2C first brands or entirely new to market products that are completely unique and bringing them to Amazon as a channel. That's always fun for me because you're either like working off of existing demand and stealing market share from the existing competition on Amazon, or you're creating entirely new demand depending on how unique your product is. And like I've had clients that I've been working with for 7, 8 years now, where the inventor of their own product, it didn't exist on the marketplace. We brought it to Amazon, proved out the sales, used that to secure retail relationships with Tractor Supply, Ace Hardware, like larger retailers. And then I've had clients go on to be on Shark Tank and really turn an idea into a powerful business. And that's the most like enjoyable and gratifying piece of this for me, is like we work and we optimize existing products on Amazon. That's fun. That's like the numbers, that's the data game, the creative game. But then actually a full like go to market launch, that is creating a business. It's creating a whole nother channel through Amazon. So we've got quite a few exciting products that we're going to be introducing to Amazon this year.
No, it's awesome. That's super exciting. So, obviously you've been doing this for some time. So if you could go back in time to before you got started, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
Yeah, if I were to go back, I would say launch more products. Like just launch more products, develop things, bring them to market, fail. Like we have an interesting business model. Like most of our work is service for Amazon sellers, but we also launch and acquire businesses too. And that's the one thing. It's like the more practice you get, the more reps you get. It's like you launch 100 Amazon products, you might get 10, 20 of them that really crush it. I would have continued, like I would have started launching products a long time ago if I really understood the platform the way that I do today. In 2015, I would have launched a bunch of products on Amazon with like little to no in-depth knowledge, because that was just the right time to do it. And there's no bad time to get started on Amazon. I think like not launching, it's like if you decide that you're going to have your business on Amazon, just get started as soon as possible, because every day that you're not on there, you're missing out on sales. But I will acknowledge it is not for the faint of heart. Amazon is a super challenging platform, and it's also it's a fun but very challenging way to make it profitable and sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's really good advice. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, wanted to work with you, what's the best way for somebody to get in contact?
Yeah, they can hit me up either on my LinkedIn, which is just my name, David Seybert, and then my website as well, which is junglekind.com.
So, well, Dave, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Of course.